Welcome to part 2 of our debate this week. And I said I want to pick up on the steam packet. And actually, all the evidence that was given to PAC. I don't know if you all had a chance to hear it. It certainly would have been fantastic. I wish I had the time to have gone down there to record it, because it was a public meeting. Because I think seeing it is even better than just hearing what these comments. But let's do the steam packet, Bill. I mean, I think because he's retiring, maybe, I don't know if that's helped, but he certainly didn't hold back, did he?
No. I think there's kind of two versions of events, but I think also we need to set the context for this and why this matters. It's not just a he said that, she said this sort of thing. If you look back to the beginning of the year, when the vaccination rollout was happening, the board of the steam packet wrote to the Cabinet Office and said, will you vaccinate our crews that are going back and forward to the UK every day? They're clearly high risk. It would make sense for them and for the island to have them protected by the vaccinations. The Cabinet Office said no, and with the benefit of hindsight, that really wasn't a great decision. It was a poor decision, and it was subsequently followed up by Chris Robertshaw in the House of Keys, who put a question down for Howard to say, will you not vaccinate the steam packet crews? And that will give them protection and also stop the infection being passed on. And there was new evidence which supported that. This was many, many weeks after the Cabinet Office said no. And both Howard and David Ashford really said no. They kind of deflected the question, saying, well, if we did that for the steam packet, we'd have to do it for teachers, police officers, supermarket workers. Where would it end, sort of thing, completely ignoring the obvious point that actually these people were going back and forward to the UK every day. So then subsequently, when the outbreak happened, and prior to that, Howard Quayle said, well, actually, I've been down to steam packet and I've satisfied myself that everything's fine. And then, of course, we had an outbreak, and which then escalated into lockdown. So this is why it's really important. And the steam packet feel incredibly aggrieved that they were doing exactly what was expected of them, and they feel let down by the Cabinet Office. They should have said yes.
Actually, they weren't doing what's expected of them, because they were expecting, they were self-isolating, but they clearly couldn't. I mean, anybody's ideas. Yeah.
So there's going to be a report produced by Stephen Hines. We haven't seen that report. I haven't seen that report yet. I imagine it's fairly imminent. But there's two very different views on what was supposed to happen, who was doing what, whatever. But I think it's just important that people understand this is the context to this.
But should the government be making a report about what is a government effectively owned business? Is it not tricky for this gentleman to come out and come up with a totally independent report, which will be acted upon? I mean, I don't know the guy, so I don't know what.
No. I do know Stephen, right. And he's a professional individual, so I'm keen to see that report, and I wouldn't make any judgments until you've actually seen that report. Would be my view. But what is it? Normally, you have some sort of meeting in the middle in terms of some understanding arranged, but it seems that people are doubling down in their positions. So, both the Cabinet Office are saying no, absolutely, and you've heard some quite belligerent stuff from our public health director saying there's some really quite unprofessional statements.
What's going on there? I mean, really, come on.
And you've got the chairman of the steam packet, Lars, and chief executive Mark Woodward, who are also very respected people who've been here for a long time, got no particular axe to grind, and they're saying, well, no, that's not the case. So I think it needs to be resolved, but I think it doesn't inspire confidence, particularly after the Rachel Glover situation, in terms of where the government was actively briefing against her and the whole letter thing. So,
what's going on with Dr. Hewitt then? I mean, the tie up with the cabinet too close, Coleman too close. Is she independent enough? I mean, you must have views, David.
Well, I come up against her a few times when I was in Parliament too. She knows her stuff, and she has a point of view. And then that point of view obviously is expressed by others that are around her in her team. And then we don't know what happens in the briefings that's given into the Council of Ministers. To me, looking on the outside, it's sad that both parties are in the trench. And nobody wants to get out of the trench and meet in the middle and said, okay, there may be differences on our side, your side, but we're not now. We're going back in the trench, and everybody's looking for an apology either way.
I still don't get it. From public's point of view, it's quite simple. The first person to stand up and say, you know what, I was wrong. I'm really sorry. I've completely screwed up here. I try to even as far as saying, I try to cover it up by digging in and trenching my position. But the first person to stand up will get more votes. I mean, it's to me, these days, it will be a vote winner for the first person to stand up and say, I got it wrong and I'm really sorry.
I'm not
I'm really sorry for the way I treated that person there. I think that, and going back to the sort of first principles of why the hell didn't we just vaccinate them when it was asked? It was that sort of tick box mentality of, we're following these set in stone guidelines. The same with the symptoms. We have to follow this. And I understand that there have to be certain guidelines and certain procedures. But with that, for the rest of the public was like, well, this is a no-brainer. Not one member of the public would have turned around and said to the steam packet, well, if I can't have my jab, you're not having one, mate.
Oh, no, there would be. There's always somebody that will write to you and tell you that.
Most rational people would not have objected to that.
Because we had the follow-on to the police as well, didn't we? And then essential services, the ambulance section, all those medical people that were actually doing it.
But they're not travelling to the UK.
No, there's a simple explanation. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to go, look, you must understand this is really important. I know vaccinating the police might be important, but if these people bring it here, then we're stuffed anyway.
And 50 jabs, 100 jabs.
And from the public's point of view, again, you just got to think that one action, what did it cost? That one small...
Right. The one thing I'm getting was that Dr. Rachel Glover wanted her information got straight to Komen and not to go up some sort of level. Same with the steam packet. Do you get the impression that they're worried that what got up there through bronze, silver, gold, what would actually get to the...
I don't know. I'm not close enough to that to really comment, but I am looking forward to seeing the report. Because I think it will be a diligent report on the chain of events. I think it's more of the thing that really concerns me about this is the inflexibility. So Dave talked about a no-brainer decision. Now, I personally agree with that, but not being able to flex. So when you're being asked questions about, actually the Cabinet Office was asked this and someone said no, not being able to say, actually, that'd be a good idea and change the position is a problem in a crisis. And we've seen a number of instances in that throughout the crisis. If you look at, it's not so long ago that we were told wearing face masks was a bad idea, or that would spread the infection. And it took a long time to get that changed. It's a long time to get the time gap between the first and second dose and the vaccinations to come in line with the JCVI recommendations from 3 weeks to 12 weeks. It took an awful long time for us to change that position. It was like, often this has felt like pulling teeth. And that inflexibility, I think, has caused a lot of frustration amongst Timetable members and the general public. But you kind of think, you kind of want people just to get on with it, and make these decisions more quickly than they're happening. I mean, generally they do get made, but it's the frustration is it's probably taken several weeks in many situations for the correct decision to come through, and that's unfortunate, I think.
And taking this a little bit wider, I've been listening. Please don't listen. Nobody at home listen to this podcast. Sam Harris with a guy called Rob Reed, who's a scientist and a science writer, just listening about this is a test run. This is to test us, and he said this pandemic is the easiest pandemic we could have possibly had.
Really?
And we need to be learning. This is a serious conversation.
Yeah.
This is for pandemics. It's not bad. I mean, it's awful because I've had it.
It's not
Ebola.
But
but the smart money is on that. This is a test run for us.
Okay. Well, and what we learn, because it has been devastating for many people here.
It's very devastating. But what we learn from this and how we behave to each other in the political class, how we deal with on a public health basis can make the difference of our society surviving. Because if we can't get simple things right,
let me have the details.
But be prepared. It's sobering, very sobering.
And it's interesting that Boris has called, the UK government have called for an independent inquiry into how they've handled it, perhaps for the same situation. I think we would definitely do for a review.
But also too early, isn't it? Boris having got to have this next spring or something.
Well, I think
it's not all over yet.
I think it'd be too early to do it now, but I think certainly early in the next administration there should be an independent review about how this situation has been handled, because there have been some attempts, I think, to airbrush history at the moment. You're seeing some of that.
But Bill, you hear that there's no minutes being taken in meetings. Every alarm bell rings, doesn't it? There's no way to find out. Well, you'll know about minutes. We'll come to Onk in a minute. But it's like when the cameras go off or something and they haven't got any footage.
On the basis of what Dave's just said, we need an independent review of how this has been handled, but not now, because we're still in the middle of it. So I think probably towards the end of the year, beginning of next year, is when you would kick off that review. And also I think some of the egos will no longer be there. So it's better to have a more detached, logical look at things about what went well.
Then no one take the blame, of course. I mean, because it'd be someone that's gone and it's all over.
But let's also be fair, actually. People haven't had to deal with this before, and actually things have gone, okay. I'm not saying they've not gone brilliantly well in some areas, but actually we've done better than many other places.
Well, we're all sitting around here right now.
Yeah, so we need to keep that in perspective.
The public don't see is that the members of Parliament, MLCs, whatever, have meetings, private meetings with the government, the council ministers, presentations given in the Brule Suite. There's a lot of information that the public will actually know, but the politicians will actually know it as well.
Sometimes more information comes out in the press conferences than the members.
I hear that frustration many times.
I wouldn't.
But you do get briefings sometimes. It's like
we do, which is correct. You need to have people informed, but actually that's not always the case.
Because that's disappointing. Because my time there was genuine warts and all briefings. There was briefings that shouldn't go out of this room, briefings that you could release later on when the story broke.
Yeah, the problematical thing is they have done briefings to the members and it has leaked, of course, so you can understand that there's a problem, and that goes on everywhere these days. People can't hold water. While things are still moving on, we've got Indian variants and all sorts of issues going on. I'd just like to get feel the room temperature on the borders and moving along as we do towards the magic 28th of June. Your thoughts?
Well, mine's a little bit too early yet as far as I'm concerned. What worries me a little bit, establishing the air bridge again back into, say, Jersey, Guernsey, fine, let's do that.
That's not the issue, though.
And also, it can't be, they're open up, so that's...
People haven't seen their families for a year and a half.
Well,
an air bridge to Guernsey is
I appreciate that. But we had 350 applications to come back to the Isle of Man on a connection, or you're on the property here somewhere. So we've started. It'd be nice to see if it can be, or they are monitored, to see what happens on that. Because when we do have an outbreak, and like you say, we could have a little outbreak again, we need to be on top of it. The testing that's done and the research that's done all the time, finding out those people. The school was a big one, wasn't it, when it came out last time? This last lockdown has cost, a lot of people of an elderly age, a lot of problems and issues.
Yeah, but are you confident with the timetable, I suppose, with the question?
Well,
28th of June, open, subject to if the UK opens, of course, now.
I'm probably sitting on the fence. I'll probably have it a little bit longer.
You sit on the fence, go on.
Yeah,
a little longer?
Honestly.
You're saying a little longer?
Yeah.
Oh.
Do it.
Okay, Bill?
I disagree fundamentally with that. I think what has changed has been the vaccination programme, which actually has gone really well. So we've got a very high percentage of people who are vaccinated. Over 61,000 people now have had a jab. So that really is a massive step forward for us. And if I look at what's happening in Jersey and Guernsey, which actually are the best comparators for us, not the UK, they are opening up ahead of us. So if you go to Jersey at the moment, you're tested on day one and then you're free to go.
Yeah, but Jersey always went on a slightly different trajectory, didn't it?
Guernsey are also ahead of us.
Yes.
So Guernsey have got BA flights now starting as well. So you are starting to see a lot more movement in Channel Islands than us. So I think we should have confidence in the vaccination programme, and all the science shows that it's incredibly effective. So I personally think we should be opening up earlier. Is my fear. I see the massive impact it's having on our society.
How early are you talking about? I mean, this is without any restrictions at all, opening up?
We definitely need to test.
Oh, okay.
I think it was
because at 20th June we're not testing, right? It's fully open, isn't it? As far as I believe.
I haven't.
Was not being sorted.
I haven't seen the full pathway for that. I think it's important.
So
you
have open up, but have testing.
Correct, and I think that's a sensible. But and also, if you have people who've been vaccinated, so. You're at 95% of the over 50 population already vaccinated and vulnerable. That has changed the whole dynamic and how we respond to this. So I understand your concern, and a lot of people share your concerns. But I think the scientific medical evidence shows that we should have more confidence, and the damage that staying closed is causing in terms of mental health, in terms of our economy, in terms of our health service. Because actually one of the biggest problems we have with the health service, which was struggling beforehand, is now way behind even further, is staff retention. Because we're losing our nurses, our doctors, our ambulance drivers. Dentists is very difficult to recruit. GPs, we're struggling for GPs. So it's very difficult to attract people to come and work in an island where you can't see your family for 2 years. You know, it's like joining the French Foreign Legion. So I mean, if we're serious about getting the health service back on track, we need to open the borders up. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I think that's a big concern.
Yeah, well, you know how cautious I am. However, I would say is in terms of reversing that position, that seeing those sporadic cases pop up and seeing it not spread further, even though I know from personal experience that 3 people around me tested negative and I tested positive and I was the least symptomatic person. However, what I'd say is because we've seen the sporadic cases, we're not seeing it spread. That's because we've either had it, and I think an awful lot of people had it, and an awful lot of people have been vaccinated. And I think the only part of this experiment going forward is to try, and I think I agree with you, Bill, that we've got to make that if it goes wrong, at least we know. And we've got to be obviously vigilant with the new variant and see how that's spreading in the UK. If it's within just pockets of communities who haven't been within their communities vaccinated, that's one thing. If it spreads further to vaccinated people,
so open or close, or
I'd say
on the right money, or
no,
what?
I'd say it's probably about right, but I'd be pushing to open sooner because I feel we have been vaccinated, the majority of vulnerable people, and we've got to give that a go. And it's important, like you say, relatives.
What's your mailbox like, just to finish with? Because, I mean, everyone's getting 50-50 or whatever. It's Marmite, isn't it? I mean, you must be getting all sorts of, keep them closed, get them open.
I think people tend to self-select. So, because I've been consistently arguing that we take a holistic view and deploy all the risk mitigants that we have to try and permit more travel, people whose businesses are struggling, people who desperately need to go and see their elderly parents who they haven't seen for a long time, or their grandchildren who've been born and now celebrating their first birthday and not see them, they tend to contact me and say, please, will you try and do something about this? I suspect the people that don't want any change, perhaps not in that situation, don't have a business to run, or don't have relatives in trouble elsewhere, they perhaps tend to contact politicians who are more in your camp.
So you're seen as people only write to you because they're agreeing with you. You don't get a lot of interesting.
You get some, but I think, you know, on balance, I would suggest probably more people, and perhaps that reflects the constituency I'm in as well. More people are saying, "Come on, we need to live with this. We need to find a way to live with this. We need to do it safely," which is where the vaccinations come in and the testing comes in. And I think the genomic sequencing could be very important as that as well. But you know, there will always be more variants. You know, and I think it's dawning on people that actually this is going to be a bit like the flu. You know, and we have the flu every year.
Which we lived with forever, and we just knew we had it.
The Spanish flu, the 1890 Spanish flu, didn't actually fizzle out completely till the 50s.
No, and it wasn't Spanish.
No, that's Spanish, yes.
Okay, we got one more section. I've got so much more to talk about. We need to talk about you in your own thing. So join us for part 3.